They are not ordinary stones. Have you ever felt it? That quiet hum in the air when you stand in a place that's truly ancient, a feeling that the ground beneath your feet remembers more than we ever will. Picture this sentinels of stone rising from the earth, some taller than three men stacked shoulder to shoulder. Their surfaces are not blank, they are alive, etched with symbols that seem to shimmer in the half light, animals and stars, and shapes that your modern mind struggles to grasp, yet your soul feels it knows. They stand in perfect, deliberate circles, as if placed by hands that saw a different scale, that moved to the rhythm of a different world. These stones have watched the sun rise and set for 12,000 years. Let that number sink in. A span of time that stretches beyond the invention of the wheel, beyond the first cities of Mesopotamia, beyond everything we've been told was the beginning. Someone, in a time we arrogantly call the deep past, decided this place was sacred. They decided to move mountains, carving and hauling blocks as heavy as a herd of elephants, using little more than their hands, their will, and a purpose that still burns so brightly it reaches us now, across the chasm of ages. Welcome. And this is Mystery History for Sleep. I will be your guide through this labyrinth of the past, where every stone, and every whisper of the earth holds a story that's waiting patiently to be heard. Tonight, we are not just looking at old rocks, we are embarking on a quest to unravel one of the greatest enigmas of all. I want you to ask yourself this and be honest. What if we are not the first? What if we are not the pinnacle of progress, but simply the latest chapter in a book whose earlier pages have been torn away for generations? We've been told a simple, comforting tale. Civilization began some 6,000 years ago. Before that, our ancestors were wanderers, hunter gatherers, leaving only fleeting traces on the earth. It's a neat, linear path from primitive to modern, from fire to flight. But does it feel true? Or is it just a story we tell ourselves to make sense of the silence? What if that silence isn't empty? What if the past is not a single thread, but a vast, broken mirror, and its shards reflect glimpses of worlds far older, far wiser than we have ever dared to imagine tonight? We will journey to these forgotten places. We will touch the stones they touched and ask the same questions they asked under the same endless sky. Let the mysteries of the past wrap around you like a warm blanket. The stones are waiting, their stories are calling. Let us step forward together into the enigma of lost civilizations. As the dawn's first light fades from that imaginary hillside, our journey now takes us to a specific place, a place that shouldn't exist. Nestled in the rugged highlands of southeastern Turkey, there is a gentle rise in the earth known to local shepherds as Potbelly Hill. For centuries, it was just that, a hill, but beneath its quiet surface, the earth was guarding a secret so profound it has single handedly rewritten the story of human beginnings. Welcome to Göbekli Tepe. As we walk this ancient ground, you can almost feel the air itself is different, humming with the weight of 12,000 years. The structures unearthed here are not the crude huts of nomads. They are the sophisticated fare, breathtaking work of a people who defied the limits of their era, forcing us to question the very foundations of our history. Let's step back in time, 12,000 years ago. The last ice age is just loosening its grip on the planet. The history books tell us that the people of this time were simple hunter gatherers, living in small bands, their lives a constant struggle for survival. They had no cities, no writing, no pottery, no metal tools. Their world was one of flint, bone, and the strength of their own hands. It's a narrative we've accepted for decades, and it is completely, utterly wrong. Because here, at Göbekli Tepe, these simple nomads did something that should have been impossible. They quarried massive limestone pillars, some weighing as much as 16 tons, the weight of two adult elephants. They dragged them across rugged terrain, and then, with breathtaking precision, they carved them and raised them into magnificent stone circles. These are not just heaps of rock, they are elegant, T-shaped pillars, some towering like two-story buildings, arranged with a celestial purpose we are only beginning to comprehend. Imagine the scene. Under a sky filled with stars we would barely recognize,
Hundreds of people work together. There are no wheels, no beasts of burden, none, just ropes, log rollers, and an unwavering collective will. What could possibly motivate them to undertake such a monumental task? What vision drove them? The pillars themselves are the heart of the mystery. Many archaeologists believe they represent stylized human figures, their arms carved in low relief along their sides, standing as silent, eternal sentinels watching over this sacred space. And their surfaces are a canvas of ancient artistry, a stone menagerie of creatures that seem to leap out at you. Lions prowl with muscles tensed as if ready to spring. Wild boars charge with gleaming tusks. Vultures spread their wings and serpents coil in intricate, mesmerizing patterns. The detail is so fine, you can almost feel the cool, smooth glide of their scales. These are not random decorations. This is a sacred language carved in stone. Some of these animals have long since vanished from this region, hinting at a time when this arid landscape was a greener, lusher paradise. Do these carvings tell a story of creation, a shamanic vision, or are they perhaps celestial maps, with each animal representing a constellation in their night sky? One pillar, the famous vulture stone, is thought by some researchers to depict a catastrophic cosmic event, a comet impact that occurred around the same time. An event that would have triggered the sudden dramatic climate change known as the Younger Dryas. Could this entire temple have been built in response to a cataclysm, a way to appease angered gods, or to record a memory of a world shattering event? This brings us to the most unsettling question of all. Göbekli Tepe is, by a staggering margin, the oldest temple in the world, 7,000 years older than Stonehenge, 8,000 years older than the Great Pyramids of Giza. Everything we thought we knew said that religion and monumental architecture came after agriculture, after humans settled down, but Göbekli Tepe flips that timeline on its head. It suggests that it was the very act of coming together to build something sacred, to worship, that may have been the catalyst for civilization itself. The need to feed the hundreds of workers who labored here for decades may have been what spurred the invention of agriculture in this very region. It wasn't that farming led to temples, it seems temples led to farming. And then, after 2,000 years of use, the creators of Göbekli Tepe did something even more baffling. They deliberately buried their magnificent creation. This wasn't the slow work of sand and time. It was a conscious, organized act. They backfilled their sacred circles with tons of earth, stone, and animal bones, hiding their masterpiece from the world. It was so thoroughly concealed that it remained hidden for 10 millennia, a sleeping giant beneath a gentle hill, until its rediscovery in 1994. Why? Why would a people go to such lengths to erase their greatest achievement? Was it an act of reverence, sealing a sacred space to protect it? Or was it an act of fear? Were they trying to bury a powerful knowledge they felt humanity was no longer ready for? Was it a response to a change in their beliefs, a cultural revolution that saw these old gods as obsolete or dangerous? We simply don't know. The stones stand silent, holding their secrets close. Göbekli Tepe is more than a ruin. It is a question mark carved in stone, a doorway to a past far more complex and mysterious than we ever knew. It proves that our ancestors were not the simple wanderers of our textbooks, but architects of wonder, capable of organizing their societies and shaping their world in ways we are only just beginning to appreciate. They leave us with a profound sense of humility and the unsettling feeling that this is only the beginning. If a temple of this scale and sophistication could remain hidden for 10,000 years, what else is still out there, waiting beneath the earth? Our journey now takes us from these windswept hills of Turkey across continents to a lush, green island in Indonesia, where an even older, even stranger, and even more profound enigma rises from the earth, cloaked in a mystery that could rewrite everything we thought Göbekli Tepe taught us. Our journey has taken us from the arid hills of Turkey, and now we must cross continents, letting our minds drift to a lush, verdant island in Indonesia. Here, an enigma rises from the earth, not as stark stone sentinels, but as a green giant, cloaked in mystery. At first glance, it appears as just a hill, its slopes draped in a thick tapestry of tropical forest.
its surface scattered with volcanic rocks that seem to have tumbled into place by the hand of nature alone. The air is thick with the scent of frangipani and damp earth, but you must learn, as I have, that appearances are often a veil. The locals call this place Gunung Padang, the mountain of light. For centuries, they have revered it as a sacred place, walking its terraced slopes for meditation, unaware that beneath their very feet lay a secret so profound it could shatter our timeline of civilization. For years, archaeologists saw what the locals saw, a modest megalithic site on the surface.
They found arrangements of basalt columns forming terraces that followed the hill's natural contours. Carbon dating of the soil around these surface stones suggested an age of 3,000 to 4,000 years. Ancient, yes, but not unprecedented. Another intriguing piece in Indonesia's rich archaeological puzzle. And for years, that is where the story rested. But some researchers couldn't shake a feeling of doubt. The massive stones, each weighing several tons, were arranged with a precision that hinted at something more. How were they quarried and hauled up such a steep slope? Why did the terraces seem to align with the rising and setting of certain stars, as if the entire hill was a celestial clock? In 2010, a new team of geologists and archaeologists decided to look deeper. They brought with them cutting edge technology, tools that allowed them to peer beneath the skin of the earth without digging a single trench. Using ground penetrating radar and seismic surveys, they sent waves of energy into the heart of Gunung Padang, and what they found sent shockwaves through the world of archaeology. This was no natural hill. The radar scans revealed empty spaces deep within chambers, tunnels, and passageways crafted with remarkable precision. Seismic data showed organized walls and foundations extending far into the earth, layer upon layer. This was an artificial structure, a colossal multi-layered pyramid built up over thousands of years. But the most staggering finding came from the core drills. As they pulled samples from deeper and deeper layers, the dates grew older, impossibly older, 10,000 years, then 15,000 years. And from the very deepest layers, a controversial date emerged 20,000 years, or perhaps even more. Let that sink in.
If true, Gunung Padang is not just the oldest pyramid in the world, it is the oldest large scale human construction ever discovered, predating Göbekli Tepe by 8,000 years and the pyramids of Egypt by 15,000, 20,000 years ago. At that time, we are told our ancestors were nomadic bands, living through the peak of the Ice Age, armed with only the simplest of stone tools. The idea that they could have organized the labor to build a massive stepped pyramid seems not just improbable, but impossible. In 2023, the research team confidently published their paper, declaring Gunung Padang the oldest known pyramid, a discovery set to rewrite every history book on the planet. But then the story took another turn. The established archaeological community pushed back hard. Critics challenged the dating methods, questioning whether the organic material in the core samples was truly associated with the construction.
They argued that the chambers and walls detected by radar could be natural geological formations, not man made structures. The debate grew so heated that the scientific journal, under immense pressure, eventually retracted the paper. So, where does that leave us? Standing in the shadow of a mystery, wrapped in a scientific controversy? Does retracting a paper erase the physical evidence? The radar scans still show those mysterious chambers deep within the hill. The core samples still contain fragments of worked stone from layers that should be untouched by human hands, and the basalt columns on the surface, arranged with an astronomer's precision, still defy any simple explanation. Whether Gunung Padang is 4,000 years old or 20,000, it speaks of a people who refuse to be bound by the limits we have set for them. A people who not only mastered stone, but perhaps even the power of sound itself, as some of the deep chambers appear to be designed as resonance boxes, amplifying chants into an otherworldly echo. This site is a question mark, a challenge not just to our timeline, but to our entire understanding of how civilization develops. And as we stand here, on its misty, enigmatic slopes, we find ourselves drawn to another, even vaster mystery. The builders of these ancient sites lived in a world with different shores, a world with more land, a world that was about to vanish. Turn your gaze now to the vast, restless expanse of the ocean.
Beneath its shimmering surface, hidden in the cold, dark depths, lie the remnants of worlds we have forgotten. I want you to picture yourself standing on a shore at twilight, the salt breeze in your hair as the waves gently lap at your feet. You are looking at an empire of secrets.
Because beneath that horizon, entire landscapes where our ancestors once walked, loved, and built their homes are now submerged beneath hundreds of feet of water. These are not the fictions of myth, these are tangible places, their streets and temples now silent kingdoms for coral and fish, their stories preserved in the perfect, timeless stillness of the deep. This is the world that was drowned. Imagine a time 15,000 years ago. The Earth was locked in the final throes of the Ice Age. Vast glaciers, miles thick, held so much of the world's water that sea levels were 400 feet lower than they are today. Coastlines stretched for miles beyond their current boundaries, revealing sprawling plains and fertile valleys. This was the world our ancestors knew, a world brimming with life, a world they built upon. They settled along these ancient shores, drawn by the bounty of the sea. But as the planet warmed and the ice began to melt, the seas began to rise, not in a single terrifying tsunami, but in a slow, inexorable flood that spanned generations. For the people living on those coasts, it must have been a deeply unsettling reality. Every year, the water crept a little closer. The beaches they played on as children became the shallows their grandchildren fished in. The valleys they once hunted in slowly transformed into bays. Over thousands of years, more than 120 meters of coastline vanished beneath the waves, taking with it countless chapters of human history. Does this sound familiar? It should. It is a story that has been whispered around campfires for millennia, a story that has found its way into the most sacred texts of cultures all across the globe. The story of a great flood. We all know the tales. The Bible speaks of Noah, guided by God to build an ark and save his family from a world submerged in water, but this is not a solitary story.
In ancient Sumeria, the Epic of Gilgamesh recounts a nearly identical deluge where a man named Utnapishtim is warned to build a boat to survive a flood sent by angry gods. Hindu scriptures describe the god Vishnu guiding the survivors of a drowned world to safety. In the Americas, indigenous tribes from the frozen north to the jungles of the south tell stories of waters rising to swallow the earth. And in the Pacific, legends speak of entire islands, the ancestral homelands, vanishing beneath the sea. For centuries, we have dismissed these stories as myths, beautiful, powerful allegories, perhaps, but fictions nonetheless. But what if they are not myths at all? What if they are memories, distorted memories, passed down through hundreds of generations of a very real global catastrophe, the end of the Ice Age and the drowning of the ancient world? Imagine a survivor of that slow, creeping flood. Standing on a shrinking shore, they watch as the sea finally claims the last traces of their home, the graves of their ancestors, the temples of their gods. What would they tell their children? Their story, a story of loss and survival, would become the most important knowledge they possessed. It would be told and retold, imbued with sacred meaning, the natural forces of the melting glaciers personified as vengeful gods. The survivors elevated to the status of heroes, chosen for their wisdom or piety. This is how memory survives. It turns into myth. The evidence is no longer just in the stories, it's on the ocean floor. The submerged cities we are now discovering, Atlit Yam, Dwarka, Pavlopitri, are the physical proof. They are the drowned worlds of the flood myths, their stones a silent testament to the truth embedded in these ancient tales. They force us to ask a profound question: if the flood was real, what else in these stories might be real? Some speculate that the tales of a golden age before the flood, of an advanced civilization that was lost, could be faint echoes of a real culture that thrived on those now submerged coastal plains. Was there a network of sophisticated maritime societies, their cities now deep beneath the waves? The legend of Atlantis, first told by the Greek philosopher Plato, describes just that: a powerful island civilization with advanced knowledge, destroyed in a cataclysm of flood and earthquake. For so long, Atlantis has been a fantasy, but as we find more and more evidence of real drowned cities, the line between myth and history begins to blur. Tonight, we will do more than just speculate. We will dive into these silent kingdoms. We will explore a 9,000-year-old village off the coast of Israel, so perfectly preserved it feels as though its inhabitants just left yesterday.
We will swim through the streets of a legendary city in India where myth and archaeology have finally met, and we will begin to piece together the story of the world that was, a world that exists now only in whispers and in the dark, silent chambers of the deep. Our journey into the drowned world now takes us to a specific point on the map, off the coast of Israel. Here, beneath the tranquil surface of the Mediterranean Sea, lies a place that is not a myth, not a legend, but a stark and beautiful reality. It is a time capsule, a silent village that has been asleep for 9,000 years. Its name is Atlit Yam. I want you to imagine you are diving with me now. The sunlight from the surface begins to fade, replaced by a deep, peaceful blue. The world becomes quiet. The only sound is your own steady breath. And then through the hazy water, shapes begin to emerge. These are not natural rock formations. They are the walls of stone houses, still standing, their hearths still bearing the ghostly traces of ancient fires. We are swimming through the streets of a Neolithic village, a home to a people who lived and died 3,000 years before the first stones were laid for the Great Pyramid of Giza. The preservation here is almost miraculous. The low oxygen environment of the seafloor has protected what time would have otherwise destroyed. We find wooden artifacts, precious and rare survivors of millennia, lying scattered among tools of flint and bone. We can almost see the lives of these people unfolding, but it is at the heart of the village that we find its greatest secret, its most profound mystery. Here, arranged in a perfect circle, stand seven megaliths, seven massive stones, each weighing up to 600 kilograms. They surround a freshwater spring that, even after 9,000 years, still bubbles up from the ocean floor, a source of life that this ancient community clearly revered, a stone circle. Does that sound familiar? It echoes the sacred designs of Göbekli Tepe, a tradition separated by thousands of years and hundreds of miles, yet sharing a common language of sacred geometry. Why did they build this? What rituals were performed here? In the heart of their village, around this life giving spring, the people of Atlit Yam were not simple hunter gatherers clinging to a precarious existence. The evidence tells a very different story. They were sophisticated, they were settled, they were farmers growing wheat and barley on the ancient coastline. They domesticated animals, they were master fishermen, their knowledge of the sea providing a rich bounty. And they were traders. Artifacts found here were made from materials that came from hundreds of kilometers away, suggesting a thriving network of connections that spanned the ancient world. This was a complex, organized community, a permanent settlement that challenges every outdated notion of what Neolithic life was like. And yet, their world was destined to disappear. The rising seas that we spoke of, that slow, creeping flood, would have been a constant presence in their lives. They would have watched the shoreline retreat year after year. Did they build their stone circle to appease the forces of nature, a desperate plea to the gods of the sea to halt the rising tide, or was it a monument to their own resilience, a final act of creation before they were forced to abandon their home forever? We stand here in our mind's eye, floating in the silent streets of this drowned village. The water shimmers with the ghosts of ancient lives. We feel their presence, their ingenuity, their connection to this place. Atlit Yam is more than just a snapshot of the past. It is a profound and unsettling question. It proves that sophisticated communities existed on these lost coastlines.
And it forces us to wonder how many more are out there, how many other villages, towns, or even cities lie sleeping beneath the waves, their stories completely erased from our history. The discovery of a place like Etlit Yam, a real place we can map and study, gives a new weight to the myths. It shows us that the drowned world is not a fantasy. If a village can be lost, why not a city? If a community can be forgotten, why not an entire kingdom? This thought leads us on our next journey from the tangible reality of a Neolithic village to the shores of India, where a story once thought to be pure myth is now meeting the startling reality of archaeological discovery. We now travel east to the western coast of India to a place steeped in legend and divinity. Near the modern city of Dwarka, local tradition has for millennia spoken of a magnificent golden city, the fabled capital of one of Hinduism's most beloved deities, Lord Krishna.
Ancient Sanskrit texts, like the Mahabharata, describe this city in breathtaking detail. It was a metropolis of grand palaces, lush gardens, and bustling harbors, a beacon of prosperity and divine power. The story ends in tragedy. After Krishna departed from the earth, the ocean, it is said, rose up and swallowed his glorious city, submerging it in a single day. For centuries, scholars and historians viewed this tale as just that, a beautiful and powerful myth, a poetic embellishment with no basis in physical reality. The city of Dwarka was a place in the heart, in faith, but not on any map until now. In recent decades, marine archaeologists surveying the seabed near the modern city have found something that has shaken the foundations of this long held skepticism. They have found stone structures, massive walls, carefully laid foundations, and large, carved blocks that lie on the ocean floor. And what is truly astonishing is that the location and layout of these underwater ruins match the very descriptions of Krishna's lost city found in the ancient texts. Imagine the moment of discovery, a diver's torch cutting through the murky water, illuminating not sand or rock, but the sharp, deliberate angle of a massive sandstone block. Then another, an entire wall, its stones worn smooth by the currents, but still bearing the unmistakable marks of ancient masons. This isn't just a collection of random stones. This is a city that was supposed to be a myth. The scale is immense. The blocks of sandstone, some weighing several tons, are arranged with a precision that speaks of careful planning and advanced engineering. This was not a simple settlement, it was a significant feat of construction. And when archaeologists managed to bring up artifacts and organic material for dating, the mystery only deepened. The dates they got were not from a single period. They ranged from 3,000 to over 9,000 years old. This suggests that a city or a series of settlements existed and thrived in this very spot for millennia before the sea finally claimed it. So, what are we to make of this? What does it mean when a place that was believed to exist only in scripture appears before us in stone? Does it mean the legends are literally true? Was this the city of a living God? Or does it suggest something even more profound? Perhaps the story of Krishna, the divine king, is a preserved memory of a real human leader, the king of a maritime civilization so advanced, so prosperous, that his memory was elevated to divinity over thousands of years of storytelling. This discovery blurs the line between history and mythology so completely that they become intertwined. We are no longer dealing with just a story. We are dealing with a story that has a physical anchor, a place we can point to. The Mahabharata describes a city swallowed by the sea, and here a city lies swallowed by the sea. This alignment invites us to reconsider all ancient myths. Were they just stories to explain the world, or were they archives? Were they a sophisticated method used by pre literate peoples to preserve the memory of real places, real events, and real people, encoding them in the unforgettable language of gods and heroes? Some researchers propose that this submerged city was a major hub in an ancient maritime trade network, its harbors connecting India to the shores of Mesopotamia and Africa. The engineering skills required to build these structures suggest a society with knowledge and resources far beyond what is commonly attributed to that era. And it leads us to wonder if the great flood myths are based in fact, and if a legendary divine city like Dwarka is based in fact, then what about the most famous lost city of all? What about Atlantis, the story of Dwarka? This place where myth and reality now hold hands emboldens us to ask these bigger questions. It suggests that our ancestors' stories were not flights of fancy, but echoes of truth. It tells us that we must listen more closely to the whispers of the past, for they may lead us to wonders we've yet to imagine. And it sets the stage for our next destinations, a perfectly planned Bronze Age city beneath the seas of Greece, and an impossible geometric monument in the deep waters of Japan, places that continue to pull on the thread of legendary lost continents. Our journey has shown us that the drowned world is real, that the stories of great floods and lost cities are not mere fantasy. Now we travel from the myth-laden waters of India to the Aegean Sea, off the southern coast of Greece. Here, we find what is often called the world's oldest submerged city, a place so clear, so complete. It is like looking through a window into the Bronze Age. Its name is Pavlopetri, dating back around 5,000 years. This city was not discovered through ambiguous radar scans or ancient myths, but by direct observation, its layout remarkably intact beneath the shallow, crystal clear waters. Imagine swimming over it. You don't need to guess where the streets are. You can see them. They are laid out in a grid of straight lines, intersecting at perfect right angles, a level of sophisticated urban planning once thought to be a much later invention. You can trace the outlines of houses, courtyards, and public buildings. You can even see a complex water management system with channels and reservoirs, hinting at a society that understood hydrology in ways we are only now beginning to appreciate. Unlike sites on land, where centuries of later construction and human activity disturb the ancient remains, Pavlopetri is frozen in time, untouched since the sea claimed it. It offers a rare, pristine glimpse into the daily lives of its people, their markets, their festivals, their quiet moments by hearts now eternally silent. Its completeness is what makes it so compelling. Archaeologists can map its districts and trace its trade routes, suggesting it was a key hub in a Bronze Age maritime network, its ports bustling with ships carrying goods across the Mediterranean. But it also begs a question. Why build a city so close to the water's edge, so vulnerable to the very sea that gave it life? Was it a testament to their confidence, their mastery of the sea, or did a sudden earthquake or tsunami hasten its demise, leaving it as a permanent memorial to the fragility of life on the coast? Pavlopetri is a powerful piece of evidence. It is undeniable proof of a complex, coastal civilization that was lost to the waves, and its existence gives us the courage to look at other, more controversial sites and ask, what if now we must journey across the globe to the deep waters off the coast of Japan? Here lies a structure so strange, so massive, and so fiercely debated. It has become an icon of the search for lost civilizations. This is the Yonaguni Monument, discovered in the 1980s by a diver. It appears to be a colossal stone structure descending in terraces toward the ocean floor. It is a monolith of right angles, flat surfaces, and what look like giant carved steps. If it is man made, then its age is staggering. Dating estimates place it at over 10,000 years old, from a time when this area was above water, part of a land bridge that connected Japan to the Asian mainland. Imagine diving into these depths, the water growing darker as you descend, your light suddenly catching the sharp geometric line of a structure that seems too perfect, too intentional to be a mere trick of geology. The debate over Yonaguni is intense. Geologists and skeptics argue that it is a natural formation, that the region's sandstone naturally fractures in straight lines, and that the relentless ocean currents could have carved out its step like features over millennia. They point to the lack of clear artifacts or tool marks to support their case, but proponents of its artificiality are just as adamant. They point to the sheer precision of its geometry, the flat terraces, the twin monoliths that stand upright, and what appears to be a carved channel system. They argue that while nature can create strange shapes, it does not create such complex and organized architecture. They suggest it could be a pyramid, a temple, or a ceremonial platform built by a sophisticated Pacific culture that thrived before the seas rose. And this is where the great legends of the Pacific reemerge. Could Yonaguni be a remnant of the fabled lost continent of Mu or Lemuria, a land said to have once connected Asia and the Americas before sinking beneath the waves in a great cataclysm? Like the legend of Atlantis in the West, these Pacific stories speak of an advanced motherland whose survivors spread across the ocean, carrying with them the memory of a drowned world. The ambiguity of Yonaguni is what makes it so tantalizing. It sits on the knife's edge between science and myth. If it is man made, it pushes back the timeline of human achievement in this part of the world by thousands of years. If it is natural, it serves as a stunning reminder that the earth itself can mimic human artistry, blurring the lines we try to draw between nature and our own creation. Together,
Pavlopetri and Yonaguni, one certain and one mysterious, tell a powerful story. They are echoes of a lost maritime past. They suggest that our planet's coastlines, now submerged, may have been the cradle of civilizations we are only just beginning to find. They force us to wonder if the legends of Atlantis and Mu are not fantasies, but the cultural ghosts of a drowned world. As we ascend from these silent underwater worlds, our minds filled with the images of sunken streets and enigmatic terraces, we now prepare to stand upon solid earth once more. But the mysteries there are no less profound, for on the sun scorched plains and high mountain plateaus of the world, there are stones so massive they seem to die not just history, but gravity itself.
We emerge from the shadowy depths of the ocean, leaving behind the silent cities that guard the secrets of the flood. We now find ourselves standing on solid ground under the hot sun of Lebanon's Bekaa Valley. Before us rise the ruins of a place the Romans called Heliopolis, the city of the sun. But the Romans were latecomers here. They built their grand temples on top of a foundation that was already ancient when they arrived, a foundation so massive, so impossibly large, that it defies all rational explanation. Welcome to Baalbek. Here, we are confronted with a feat of engineering that makes the mind reel. The foundation platform of the Temple of Jupiter is built upon a course of stones known as the Trilithon. These are three colossal limestone blocks, each one measuring over 60 feet long and weighing an estimated 800 tons. To put that in perspective, that is the equivalent of more than 100 large elephants per block.
They were quarried, somehow transported over a mile of uneven terrain, and then lifted more than 20 feet into the air to be placed in a wall. And they are fitted together with such flawless precision that you cannot slip a knife blade between them. Stand here with me, before these silent giants. Run your hand along their impossibly smooth surface. These stones are a quiet, powerful rebuke to everything we think we know about the ancient world. The Romans, master builders in their own right, could not have moved these stones. Their own records are silent on the matter. They simply built their temple on top of a platform that was already there, a legacy from a people whose identity is completely lost to history. But the mystery of Baalbek deep in Gia. If you walk a mile away to a nearby limestone quarry, you will find something even more staggering.
There, lying half buried in the earth, as if its creators simply paused mid task and walked away, is a monolith known as the Hajar al Hibla, or the Stone of the Pregnant Woman. It is the largest worked monolith on Earth. It was quarried and shaped with sharp, precise edges, but it was never moved. It weighs an estimated 200 tons, and recently, when an even larger block, estimated at over 1,600 tons, was found nearby. This is where the questions become overwhelming. This isn't just a matter of manpower. This is a question of fundamental physics. How did they plan to move a 200-ton block of stone? The largest modern mobile cranes in the world would be tested by such a weight. And their invention is a product of the 20th century. Even if you could somehow gather enough men, tens of thousands of them, how do you coordinate their efforts? How do you create a road capable of withstanding that pressure? How do you use simple levers and rollers on an object of that magnitude? The builders of Baalbek not only planned to move these stones, but they succeeded with others nearly as large, placing them in a wall high above the ground with a watchmaker's precision. This wasn't just a feat of strength, it was a feat of unparalleled technical genius. Local legends say that Baalbek was built by giants, or that the stones were moved by Cain, the son of Adam, as a place of refuge after being cast out by Git. Other myths speak of Solomon commanding jinn spirits to move the stones with magic. These stories, as fantastical as they sound, are a testament to how deeply this place has defied human understanding for millennia.
When a feat is so far beyond our comprehension, we reach for the supernatural, for gods and monsters, because the alternative that ancient humans did this with the technology or knowledge we have lost is almost more frightening. What tools did they use? The surfaces of the stones are so smooth, the joints so tight, they almost feel machine made. Were they using simple ropes, rollers, and human strength on a scale we can no longer imagine, or did they possess something more? A different understanding of acoustics, of vibration, of magnetism that allowed them to manipulate stone in ways we can't replicate. The stones of Baalbek don't just ask us to question the past, they demand it. They are a monument to an ambition that borders on the divine. They force us to confront the possibility that we are looking at the legacy of a civilization whose capabilities equal, or perhaps even unsurpassed, our own. As we stand here, dwarfed by their silent power, we must let go of our modern arrogance. These are not the works of primitive people, they are the work of masters, and their legacy pulls us further on our journey, across the globe to the high Andes of Peru, where the stones are not just massive, but are fitted together in a way that seems to bend the rules of geometry itself. We leave the sun scorched plains of Lebanon, our minds still reeling from the impossible weights of Baalbek. Our journey now takes us across the world, high into the Andes Mountains of Peru. Here, overlooking the ancient Inca capital of Cusco, lies a fortress that presents a different, more intricate kind of impossibility. This is Sacsayhuaman. The name is a challenge to pronounce, and the structure itself is a challenge to comprehend. At first glance, it is a fortress of immense, zigzagging walls.
But as you draw closer, the true mystery reveals itself, not in the sheer size of the stones, though they are massive, but in how they are fitted together. This is not the work of simple masonry. This is the work of master puzzle makers. The walls are built from colossal blocks of granite and limestone, some weighing over 100 tons, but they are not cut into uniform bricks. Instead, they are polygonal, irregular, each stone uniquely shaped to lock perfectly with its neighbors. Imagine a three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle, forged from stone, on a scale that defies belief. Some blocks have as many as 12 sides, each one angled and curved to fit seamlessly against the next. The joints are so tight, so perfect, that even after centuries of earthquakes and exposure, you cannot pass a single sheet of paper between them. I want you to picture yourself there, standing at over 11,000 feet above sea level, the thin air making your breath catch in your chest. You run your fingers along the join between two massive stones, their surfaces polished to a near mirror finish. You cannot feel a seam. It is as if the stones have melted and flowed into one another, their edges blending so smoothly they appear almost organic, as if they were soft clay pressed together, not hard rock carved with tools. How did they achieve this? The official story tells us the Inca used simple stone hammers and abrasive sand to slowly grind these blocks into shape. It would have required a level of patience that is difficult for our modern minds to grasp, but it also would have required a level of planning and three-dimensional visualization that seems almost supernatural. How do you carve a 100-ton stone with 12 unique curving angles and know that it will fit perfectly against its equally complex neighbors? The process would have demanded meticulous, repeated fittings, lifting and lowering these massive blocks time and time again. But the true genius of Sacsayhuaman lies not just in its beauty, but in its function. This fortress stands in one of the most seismically active regions on Earth. For centuries, it has survived tremors that have toppled the cathedrals and colonial buildings built by the Spanish. Its design is the pinnacle of earthquake-resistant engineering. The irregular, interlocking blocks dissipate the energy of a tremor, the tight joints allowing the wall to move and shift without collapsing. Modern engineers are only now studying this ancient technique, marveling at its simple, devastating effectiveness. The builders of Sacsayhuaman understood structural dynamics in a way we are only just beginning to rediscover. And who were these builders? The Inca are credited with its construction, but like the Romans at Baalbek, they may have been the inheritors of an even older tradition.
Some local legends whisper that the earliest parts of the fortress predate the Inca, built by a mysterious, long vanished culture. The Inca themselves told the Spanish conquerors that the fortress was not built by men, but by giants. As we stand here, surrounded by these flowing, impossible walls, we are confronted with a different kind of wonder than at Baalbek. Baalbek was a mystery of how. How did they lift it? Sacsayhuaman is a mystery of how. How did they fit it? It speaks of a deep, intuitive understanding of geometry, of a symbiotic relationship between the builder and the stone. It is a dance of logic and artistry, a symphony of form and function. These walls challenge our notion of technology. We think of technology as machines, as digital code. But what if technology can also be a deep, refined knowledge passed down through generations, a mastery of material and environment so complete that it appears magical to outsiders?
The stones of Sacsayhuaman are not just a fortress, they are a library of such knowledge. But as our journey continues, we find that there is another site, even higher in the Andes, where the precision is not organic and flowing, but sharp, geometric, and so perfect it seems to leave the realm of human hands entirely. We now travel from Peru to Bolivia to a windswept plateau where the ruins of a place called Pumapunku wait to shatter our last remaining assumptions. We find ourselves standing on a high, windswept plateau, the impossible ruins of Pumapunku scattered around us like the shattered pieces of a forgotten dream. We have journeyed from the world's oldest temple to cities beneath the waves, to stones so heavy they defy our understanding of gravity, and to puzzles of rock so intricate they mock our notions of primitive tools. We have reached the edge of conventional explanation.
And so, we must be brave enough to step across that line, to explore the theories that linger in the shadows of mainstream archaeology. These are the ideas that, while unproven, persist because the questions they attempt to answer are just too powerful to ignore. Let us begin with one of the most persistent, most captivating, and most controversial theories of all, the idea of extraterrestrial influence. For decades, authors and theorists have looked at sites like Pumapunku and Baalbek and concluded that they are not the work of human hands alone. They proposed that thousands of years ago, our planet was visited by advanced beings from beyond the stars, and that the monuments that baffle us are their fingerprints left upon the earth. Pumapunku, with its andesite stones cut with machine like accuracy, becomes Exhibit A. How, they ask, could a Bronze Age culture achieve such perfection? The extraterrestrial hypothesis offers a simple, if staggering, answer: they didn't. Advanced beings armed with laser cutters, sonic drills, or technologies we can't even conceive of shaped these stones with uncanny ease. The trilithon at Baalbek becomes Exhibit B. Why would humans struggle to move 800-ton blocks when advanced visitors could levitate them into place with anti gravity devices? Proponents of this theory, most famously popularized by writers like Eric von Daniken, argue that the evidence is not just in the stones, but in our oldest myths. They suggest that the stories of gods descending from the heavens, found in cultures from ancient Sumeria to Mesoamerica, are not religious fantasies, but distorted memories of these very encounters. The sky gods were not gods at all, they were astronauts. Their chariots of fire were spacecraft. The magic they wielded was technology. In this view, the enigmatic carvings at Göbekli Tepe could be seen as encoded messages, blueprints of cosmic knowledge preserved in stone by awestruck human apprentices. The leaders and innovators of our ancient past, the figures we remember as mythical heroes or demigods, may have been humans who were taught by these visitors, sharing fragments of advanced knowledge with their people. The theory is captivating because it offers a single grand explanation for so many seemingly impossible feats. It solves the puzzle. But does it mainstream archaeology? It must be said, strongly refutes this idea. The primary counterargument is that the ancient astronaut theory, while compelling, deeply underestimates human ingenuity. It takes the achievements of our ancestors and credits them to someone else. Archaeologists argue that the precision at Pumapunku, while extraordinary, could have been achieved through immense time and patience, using techniques of slow, careful grinding with abrasive materials like sand. The monumental labor at Baalbek, while mind-boggling, could have been organized with a deep understanding of leverage, ropes, rollers, and the collective strength of a highly motivated community. In essence, they argue we don't need to invent aliens to explain these wonders. We just need to give our ancestors more credit. And yet, the allure of the hypothesis persists. It lingers in our collective imagination, not because it has been proven, but because it taps into a deep sense of wonder about our place in the cosmos. It invites us to look up at the night sky and ask, are we alone and have we ever been? The theory, whether true or not, forces us to confront the sheer scale of the mysteries we've uncovered. But What if the answer is not in the stars, but closer to home? What if the power that shaped these stones was not extraterrestrial, but terrestrial, a power born of this earth, a different kind of science, a knowledge that humanity once possessed and has since forgotten? The idea of alien engineers, while tantalizing, is not the only alternative to conventional history. There is another path of speculation, one that keeps the genius firmly in human hands but suggests our ancestors possessed a different kind of science, a knowledge of the Earth's subtle energies that we have lost. This is the realm of lost technologies. Consider the walls of Sacsayhuaman, where massive stones fit together like a puzzle, or the machine like blocks of Pumapunku. Some researchers propose that these were not shaped by brute force alone, but by a mastery of natural principles we are only just beginning to explore. One of the most intriguing of these ideas is acoustic levitation. It sounds like science fiction, but it is rooted in a strange consistency in myths from around the world. Stories that describe stones being moved not by muscle, but by sound. Legends of priests and holy men who could lift massive blocks by chanting in a specific rhythm or by playing instruments that produced powerful, resonant frequencies. In modern physics labs, we have proven that sound waves can indeed levitate small, lightweight objects. Could ancient peoples have mastered a primitive, large scale version of this principle? Imagine the scene at Pumapunku, a group of priests, their voices joined in a powerful harmonic chant. The vibrations they create resonate with the natural frequency of the stone itself, subtly reducing its weight, making it possible for workers to guide it into place with an ease that would seem magical to us. The chambers detected by radar deep within Gunung Padang in Indonesia seem designed to amplify sound. Were they merely for ceremony, or were they part of a practical acoustic technology? Then there is the possibility of chemical or thermal techniques. At Pumapunku, the great mystery is how they shaped andesite, a stone so hard it resists bronze tools. Some have proposed that the builders possessed knowledge of chemistry, perhaps using acidic plant extracts or other organic compounds to soften the surface of the stone, allowing them to mold it or shape it like clay before it hardened again. Others suggest they may have used intense heat to vitrify the stone's surface, creating that impossibly smooth, polished finish. Of course, no direct evidence of such compounds survives, but any perishable materials like plant based acids or the wooden templates used to shape the blocks would have decayed long ago, leaving behind only the perfectly shaped stone. These theories also extend to harnessing the Earth's natural energies. Many megalithic sites, from stone circles in Europe to temples in South America, show a precise alignment with the Earth's magnetic poles. Was this for spiritual reasons, or did the builders understand something about geomagnetism? Could they have tapped into these energy lines to aid their work in some way we don't yet understand? These ideas are, of course, speculative. They thrive in the gaps of our knowledge. The absence of tool marks on Pumapunku's stones doesn't prove they use sound waves, but it does invite the question. The seamless joints at Sacsayhuaman don't prove they used stone softening chemicals, but they make us wonder. These theories represent a kind of middle ground. They do not require us to believe in visitors from other planets. Instead, they ask us to believe in the boundless potential of the human mind. They suggest that our ancestors may have followed a different scientific path, one based on harmony with nature's forces rather than the forceful extraction that defines our modern era. A science of vibration, resonance, and subtle energies, a craft refined over generations and then tragically lost. Lost how? Perhaps in the great cataclysms that gave rise to the flood myths. Perhaps a fragile knowledge, held only by a select few, was wiped out, leaving future generations to look upon their work with the same awe and confusion that we do. These theories, whether of sound or chemistry or energy, all point toward the tantalizing possibility that the story of human science is not a straight line, but a broken one with forgotten peaks of brilliance. And this leads us to an even grander thought. If these technologies and the sites they built are so similar across the globe, the precision stonework, the celestial alignments, the moving of massive weights, Could they have been connected? Or what if this wasn't just isolated pockets of genius, but the remnants of a single, forgotten, global civilization? We have explored theories of alien engineers and forgotten human sciences. Both attempt to explain the impossible feats we've witnessed, but there is another hypothesis, one that is perhaps the most tantalizing of all. It doesn't look to the stars for answers, nor does it rely on a single lost technology. Instead, it suggests that all these scattered mysteries, from the temples of Turkey to the megaliths of Peru, from the sunken cities of India to the enigmatic platforms of Japan, are not isolated pockets of genius. It suggests they are the broken pieces of a single shattered puzzle, the last remnants of a forgotten global human civilization. I want you to hold that thought for a moment. A global civilization, not in our time, but in the deep past, during the Ice Age, a time when lower sea levels exposed vast coastal plains, connecting continents in ways we can no longer see on our maps. Imagine a network of advanced maritime societies, their ships navigating the world's oceans, their cultures exchanging knowledge, art, and technology across immense distances. The similarities we've seen are striking. Are they not the T-shaped pillars of Göbekli Tepe, carved with animals, echo the totemic art of ancient South America? The precise earthquake-resistant stonework at Pumapunku shares an uncanny, familial resemblance to the polygonal walls of Sacsayhuaman, despite being thousands of miles apart. The submerged cities we visited in the Mediterranean and off the coast of India all point to sophisticated coastal cultures that were wiped from the map by the same event, the rising seas.
Could these be the scattered fingerprints of a single mother culture, a civilization that flourished in a world that no longer exists, its heartland now lost beneath the waves? This hypothesis proposes that this ancient civilization was not destroyed by a single sudden event, but by that slow, relentless catastrophe we spoke of earlier. As the glaciers melted and the seas rose, their coastal cities and fertile lowlands were slowly inundated. Their populations were scattered, forced inland, becoming refugees. Over generations, their advanced knowledge began to decay. Their sophisticated science devolved into myth. Their history became legend. All that survived were the fragmented memories and their most durable creations, the great stone monuments they built, often far inland, perhaps as celestial markers or as desperate attempts to preserve their knowledge for a future they knew they would not see. And this is where we must speak of the most famous legend of all, Atlantis.
For over 2,000 years, the story of Atlantis, first told by the Greek philosopher Plato, has captivated the human imagination. He described it as a mighty island civilization, a hub of immense power and sophistication, located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, a culture that mastered engineering and philosophy, but whose pride led to its downfall, destroyed by earthquakes and floods, vanishing into the sea in a single terrible day and night. For centuries, scholars have dismissed the story as a simple allegory, a political fable created by Plato to make a point about hubris. But what if it isn't? What if Plato's tale is not a fiction, but a surviving fragment of a global memory? The discovery of real submerged cities like Pavlopitri and Dwarka has given this idea new life. They prove that advanced societies were swallowed by the sea.
Could Atlantis have been a real place, the capital of this Ice Age maritime network, its memory distorted but preserved through millennia of storytelling until it finally reached Plato? And what of the other legends, the Pacific myth of Mu, a lost continent that once connected Asia and the Americas, finds a strange echo in the enigmatic, submerged terraces of Yonaguni? These stories, found in cultures all over the world, describe a paradise lost, an age of wisdom and peace that was destroyed by water. Are these all just independent fictions, or are they the collective, just shared memory of a world that was lost to the flood? If this global civilization did exist, it would explain everything. It would explain how distant cultures shared similar building techniques and artistic motifs. It would explain how they all seem to possess a sophisticated knowledge of astronomy and engineering.
And it would explain why their stories, from the Epic of Gilgamesh to the legends of the Andes, all speak of a great cataclysm and a former golden age. But it also leaves us with a chilling thought. If a civilization so advanced, so widespread, could be so utterly erased from history, remembered only in the guise of myth, then how permanent is our own world? How much of our own knowledge, our own achievements would survive a global catastrophe? It's a humbling thought, but it also raises a darker question. If the evidence for such a past is so compelling, why is it not the accepted version of history? Why is this idea still confined to the fringes? This leads us to our next, and perhaps most unsettling possibility. What if the truth hasn't just been lost to time? What if it's being hidden? There is a darker possibility that we must consider, a theory that suggests the gaps in our knowledge are not accidental.
This is the idea that the truth about our advanced past has been deliberately hidden. It's a provocative thought, one that takes us from the realm of archaeology into the shadowy world of conspiracy. The theory argues that powerful institutions, governments, secret societies, even mainstream academic bodies actively suppress evidence of advanced ancient civilizations. But why? What would be the motive for such a monumental cover up? Proponents of this theory suggest the motive is control. Our modern world is built upon a narrative of linear progress, the story that we are the pinnacle of human achievement, that our science, our societies, our way of life are the most advanced that have ever existed. This narrative justifies our current power structures and our belief in our own superiority.
If it were proven that a civilization 12,000 years ago possessed a sophisticated understanding of astronomy, engineering, or perhaps even consciousness that rivaled or exceeded our own, it would shatter this comforting story. It would destabilize the foundations of our worldview. It would force us to ask humbling and inconvenient questions about our own society. And so, the theory goes, evidence that challenges this narrative is ignored, discredited, or actively concealed. Let's look at the case of Gunung Padang in 2023, a scientific paper presenting evidence that it could be a 20,000-year-old pyramid was published and then, after intense debate, retracted. For conspiracy theorists, this was a smoking gun. They ask, why would a discovery that could potentially rewrite history be so quickly and publicly shut down? Was it due to legitimate concerns about methodology, as the journal stated? Or was it because the findings were simply too disruptive, too dangerous to the established timeline of history? This is just one example. The theory weaves a narrative of a global elite guarding ancient secrets. It whispers of forgotten texts and artifacts locked away in the deepest vaults of the Vatican, containing records from Atlantis itself. It speaks of classified excavations under the Antarctic ice, where the frozen remains of a lost civilization are said to be hidden. It points to archaeologists who have had their careers ruined for daring to step outside the bounds of conventional dogma. Now, I must be clear. There is no hard evidence to support these grand claims of a coordinated global conspiracy. They remain firmly in the realm of speculation, and yet they resonate with so many people. Why? Because they tap into a deeper, more intuitive truth that our official understanding of history is incomplete. There are gaps, there are anomalies. Sites like Pumapunku and Baalbek do defy easy explanation. The conspiracy theory, however far fetched, offers a narrative that acknowledges this sense of mystery, whereas sometimes mainstream science seems to dismiss it too quickly. So, while we may not find evidence of a shadowy cabal hiding the truth, the feeling that something is being missed or perhaps ignored is very real. The past is vast, and our understanding is but a tiny glimpse. And with every new discovery, that glimpse reveals a picture that is stranger and more complex than the simple story we've been told. But perhaps we have been looking for the answer in the wrong place. We've considered aliens from the stars and conspiracies in the shadows. But what if the most incredible explanation is also the simplest one? What if the power behind these wonders was not alien, not magical, and not suppressed, but was simply human? What if we have been so busy looking for complex solutions that we have overlooked the extraordinary, boundless potential of our own ancestors? We have wandered through the shadows of speculation, exploring possibilities of alien visitors and forgotten sciences. These theories are born from a sense of awe, a feeling that the works of our ancestors are simply too grand, too perfect to be human. But now we must turn to an explanation that is, in its own way, the most wondrous of them all. What if the builders of these monuments didn't need help from the stars? What if they didn't need a lost magical technology? What if all they needed was the power that already existed within them, the boundless, timeless power of human ingenuity?
This perspective asks us to debunk the greatest myth of all, the myth of the primitive ancient. For too long, we have been captive to a modern bias, a tendency to measure our ancestors against our own technological yardstick. We envision them as cave dwellers, their lives consumed by a desperate struggle for survival. But the monuments we've encountered defy this condescending image. The notion that ancient peoples were intellectually inferior is a fallacy. The human brain of 20,000 or even 50,000 years ago was essentially identical to ours. It was wired for the same creativity, the same abstract thought, the same brilliant problem solving that defines our own era. What they lacked was not intelligence, but the accumulated written knowledge we inherit, and yet, without it, they accomplished wonders. Let's return to the impossible stones.
Experimental archaeology, a field where researchers attempt to replicate ancient feats using ancient methods, has shown that what seems impossible is often just incredibly difficult. It has demonstrated that massive stones, even those weighing many tons, can be moved with simple tools ropes, wooden rollers, levers, and the collective coordinated strength of a community. The precision at Pumapunku, while extraordinary, can be explained by years of patient, painstaking grinding with abrasive materials like sand and water. This doesn't require alien lasers. It requires a level of dedication and craftsmanship that is, perhaps, even more awe inspiring. Imagine a master craftsman at Pumapunku teaching an apprentice how to read the secrets of a stone, how to feel its grain, how to chip away just enough to create a perfect edge over weeks, months, years. This was not crude labor, it was a sacred art form, a tradition refined over countless generations.
The engineering at these sites reveals a mastery of mathematics and geometry that was deeply integrated into their culture. At Sacsayhuaman, the builders calculated the complex angles of their 12-sided blocks to distribute stress and resist earthquakes. They likely did this using simple tools like plumb lines and knotted ropes, but their understanding was honed through generations of observation and practice.
At Göbekli Tepe, the builders arranged their pillars in perfect circles, aligned with the stars, suggesting a knowledge of astronomy gained through patient, decade-long observation. These were not approximations, they were precise calculations, a science embedded in stone and ceremony. The sheer scale of these projects also speaks to sophisticated social systems. Building Göbekli Tepe or Gunung Padang required the coordination of hundreds, if not thousands, of workers over many decades. This wasn't the work of scattered, disorganized tribes, but of communities with visionary leaders, skilled planners, and a powerful shared purpose that was likely rooted in spiritual ideals. Imagine the gatherings where plans were drawn in the dirt, where workers were rallied not by force, but by a collective faith in creating something eternal for their people. This profound social organization challenges the idea that complex societies only emerged with agriculture. In fact, sites like Göbekli Tepe suggest the very opposite, that the monumental spiritual act of building together may have been the catalyst that spurred the invention of farming and the birth of cities. To dismiss these achievements as the work of aliens is to rob our ancestors of their brilliance. It is to say that we, their descendants, are incapable of such greatness without outside help. The truth is far more empowering.
The builders of Baalbek, who dared to move 800-ton stones, were driven by a vision that transcended their era. The stargazers of Göbekli Tepe, who mapped the cosmos, wove science and spirituality into a single, seamless worldview. Recognizing this does not diminish the mystery, it deepens it. It forces us to ask not who helped them, but what did they know that we've forgotten? It shifts our awe from hypothetical aliens to the very real and proven potential that lies within the human spirit. The stones of Baalbek and the walls of Sacsayhuaman are not evidence of extraterrestrial visitation. They are monuments to human
They remind us that innovation is not a modern invention, but a timeless, burning flame. And now, our own modern ingenuity is allowing us to see their world more clearly than ever before. We are developing new tools, new ways of seeing that are piercing the veil of time and revealing the true scales of their lost world.
For centuries, the search for lost civilizations was a matter of luck and painstaking labor. Archaeologists trekked through unforgiving terrain, hoping to stumble upon a forgotten ruin, their work limited by what their eyes could see. But imagine a world where you could peel back the dense canopy of a jungle as if it were a blanket, revealing an entire city hidden beneath. This is not a fantasy. This is the reality of a revolutionary technology called LiDAR, LiDAR, which stands for light detection and ranging, has completely changed the game. From an aircraft or a drone soaring high above the treetops, a LiDAR system fires millions of laser pulses toward the ground every second. It measures the precise time it takes for each pulse to bounce back. While many pulses reflect off leaves and branches, some find their way through the gaps to the forest floor. And advanced algorithms then analyze this colossal data set, digitally stripping away the vegetation to create a breathtakingly detailed 3D map of the bare earth below. The results have been nothing short of miraculous. In the dense jungles of Guatemala, where archaeologists once spent decades hacking through vines to map a single building, LiDAR has uncovered sprawling Maya cities in a matter of days. It has revealed thousands of previously unknown structures, pyramids, palaces, defensive walls, and vast networks of causeways connecting them. It has shown us that these were not just isolated ceremonial centers, but massive, interconnected urban landscapes. In Cambodia, LiDAR has mapped the full, staggering extent of the Angkor Empire. It revealed that the famous temples were not just a cluster of monuments, but the heart of a vast, low density city that may have been home to nearly 1 million people at its peak, making it the most extensive urban complex of the pre industrial world. These are not just new sites on a map, they are entirely new chapters of human history, proving that ancient societies were far larger, more populous, and more complex than we ever dared to dream. LiDAR's true power lies in its sensitivity. It can detect the faintest traces of human activity. An ancient wall, long since crumbled to dust, still leaves a subtle rise in the landscape. A filled in ditch creates a slight depression. Even centuries after a structure has vanished, its foundations alter the soil and vegetation in ways that LiDAR can see, allowing it to map entire buried cities without a single shovel ever touching the ground. And this technology is becoming ever more accessible. What once required a massive budget and a dedicated aircraft can now be achieved with a miniaturized LiDAR system carried by a drone. This is democratizing discovery. Researchers and even local communities with a passion for their own heritage can now survey remote areas at a fraction of a cost. From the Amazon to the deserts of Arabia, LiDAR is revealing lost worlds, hinting that our planet still holds countless secrets waiting for us to look. Imagine the thrill of that moment, watching a digital map slowly render, the ghostly outlines of a forgotten city emerging from the static, its streets and homes appearing like a memory long suppressed. It is a conversation with the past, a chance to walk where our ancestors walked, all made possible by shooting light through the trees. But LiDAR can only show us the surface. What about the secrets that lie deeper, buried not just by jungles, but by time itself? For that, we need another set of eyes, tools that can see not just through leaves, but through the very earth beneath our feet. LiDAR has given us the power to see through the jungle's veil, but what about the secrets buried deeper still, concealed not by leaves, but by centuries of earth and soil? To see into this realm, we need another set of eyes, a technology that can create a portrait of a buried world without disturbing a single grain of sand. This is the magic of ground penetrating radar, or GPR. Once a crude instrument, GPR has evolved into a sophisticated system that allows us to do the impossible, to see through the ground. It works by sending pulses of radio waves into the earth and meticulously measuring their reflections. Every change in soil density, moisture, or material sends back a different echo, and a powerful computer weaves these echoes into a three-dimensional image of what lies beneath.
It is, in essence, a form of digital excavation.
This is the very technology that detected the mysterious chambers and passages deep within the hill at Gunung Padang, hinting at a structure far older and more complex than anyone had dared to imagine. Across Europe, GPR has mapped entire Roman villas and medieval settlements buried beneath quiet fields, their layouts preserved as if they were frozen in time. Modern systems can now probe 30 meters or more into the Earth, reaching layers that hold clues to human activity from tens of thousands of years ago. Imagine a technician watching a screen as the radar image slowly forms. The ghostly outline of a hidden chamber emerges from the static, its purpose a mystery waiting to be solved. But perhaps the most revolutionary tool is one that takes us from the grand scale of buried cities to the intimate, microscopic essence of life itself. We once relied on bones and teeth to trace the footsteps of ancient peoples. Now we have discovered that the soil itself tells their stories. This is the world of environmental DNA, or eDNA. Every archaeological site is a genetic archive. Every living thing, every human, every animal, every plant sheds traces of its DNA into the environment. This genetic dust settles in the soil and, under the right conditions, can be preserved for millennia. eDNA technology allows us to extract and analyze these faint genetic echoes, reconstructing not just who lived in a place, but how they lived. The sensitivity of this technology is staggering. At sites in North America, eDNA has revealed human presence thousands of years earlier than any physical artifacts had suggested, pushing back the timeline of human arrival in the Americas. It can identify specific human groups from soil alone, even where no bones remain. In the submerged village of Atlet Yam, soil samples taken from the seabed have yielded the DNA of the crops they grew and the livestock they raised, painting a vivid picture of the village's daily life. Imagine sifting through a handful of earth from an ancient hearth, knowing that each grain holds the genetic echoes of a family that once laughed, worked, and dreamed by a now vanished shore. We can uncover their diet, trace their migrations across continents, and even detect the ancient diseases they faced. Each sample is a time capsule, whispering stories of lives that shape the world we inherit. These technologies, LiDAR, GPR, EDNA, are our time machines. They are peeling back the layers of Earth and history to reveal worlds we thought were lost forever. They challenge our timelines and prove that ancient societies were far more widespread and complex than we ever believed. But while these tools can show us the what, the buried walls, the hidden cities, the genetic blueprint of a meal, they cannot always tell us the why. They cannot tell us the stories, the beliefs, the sacred myths that gave meaning to these ancient lives. For that, we must turn to a different kind of archive, one made not of data, but of human memory, the oldest and most resilient archive of all. Before the invention of writing, before clay tablets and papyrus scrolls, human knowledge was not stored on shelves. It lived in the minds and voices of our ancestors, their songs, their stories, their sacred chants. These were their libraries, a living, breathing archive of wisdom, history, and in belief. We often dismiss these oral traditions as fanciful myths or simple folk tales, but this is a profound misunderstanding. These were not mere entertainments, they were sacred vessels, carefully designed to carry detailed knowledge across centuries with a precision that can rival written records. Consider the Aboriginal peoples of Australia, who possess one of the oldest continuous cultures on Earth. Their oral traditions preserve astonishingly accurate accounts of geological events that occurred over 10,000 years ago. Their stories, passed down through hundreds of generations, describe ancient coastlines that perfectly match the submerged landscapes of the Sea Age when sea levels were 400 feet lower. Imagine a storyteller, their voice rising and falling like the tide, recounting a time when their people walked on lands now claimed by the ocean. Their words are not a myth, they are a map to a world long gone. These oral libraries were incredibly resilient and sophisticated. They were not just haphazardly remembered. Storytellers were often trained from a young age, tasked with memorizing vast and complex narratives with perfect fidelity. They used powerful mnemonic devices, rhythm, rhyme, repetition, and song to ensure the stories were not corrupted over time. Picture a young apprentice sitting at the feet of an elder, learning the exact cadence and intonation of a tale that carries the weight of their people's entire history. Each word was a sacred thread in a tapestry stretching back millennia. These traditions were also intensely practical. They were tools for survival. The Polynesian navigators, for instance, used complex star chants to cross the vast, featureless expanse of the Pacific Ocean. Their oral traditions encoded precise navigational knowledge, mapping the constellations and currents, allowing them to guide their canoes across thousands of miles with an accuracy that rivals modern GPS. These myths were not just tales, they were tools, ensuring that critical knowledge survived the fragility of human memory. But these living libraries are also incredibly fragile. Unlike a book, which can survive for centuries on a shelf, an oral tradition exists only as long as there are people to tell it and people to listen. A single catastrophe, a war, a plague that claims the storytellers, a conquest that silences their voices can erase centuries of knowledge in a single moment. When new religions or political systems arrive, they often replace the old stories with new ones, leaving entire histories to fade like whispers on the wind. This is why the myths that have survived are so important. Their endurance is a testament to their profound meaning. The great flood myths, found in cultures all across the globe, persisted because they carried the weight of a real, shared trauma, the drowning of the Ice Age world. The stories of golden ages and gods from the sky may have persisted because they preserve the faint, distorted memory of a time when humanity's achievements were so great they seem divine to their scattered descendants today. As our modern scientific tools reveal submerged coastlines and impossibly ancient temples, we are beginning to realize that our ancestors were telling us the truth all along. Their myths were not fiction, they were history, written in a language of metaphor and memory.
As we listen to these echoes, we feel a profound connection to those who came before. Their hopes, their fears, their wisdom, it all mirrors our own. These stories lead us from the realm of history and myth to a deeper place of personal reflection. What do all of these discoveries truly mean for us today? In our modern world, we have journeyed to the edge of time. We have stood before stones that whisper of a 12,000-year-old dawn, and we have dived to cities sleeping under the sea. We have listened to the stories of our ancestors, stories of floods and gods, and we have marveled at the new scientific tools that are confirming their ancient truths. And so, we are left on this imaginary hilltop under a canopy of stars with one final essential question. What does it all mean? What do these echoes from a forgotten past mean for us here in our fleeting moment in the present? Perhaps the first lesson is one of humility.
We often view history as a straight, ascending path, a climb from primitive beginnings to our own modern triumphs. We see ourselves as the pinnacle, the final, most advanced chapter. But these ancient sites suggest a different narrative, one that is not a straight line, but a cycle, a story of civilizations rising to great heights of brilliance, only to fall back into oblivion, their knowledge gained and lost, only to be slowly, painfully rediscovered by those who follow. The builders of Göbekli Tepe, 12,000 years ago, looked at the same stars we see tonight, their hearts stirred by the same sense of wonder. Their minds wrestled with the same profound questions about meaning and eternity that we do. Their dreams, their ambitions, their desire to create something that would outlast them, are they not so different from our own? This profound connection across the abyss of time reminds us that our modern world, with its steel towers and digital archives, is perhaps just as fragile as their world of stone and timber. The submerged cities of Atlit Yam and Dwarka are not just archaeological curiosities, they are a warning. They are a mirror reflecting our own vulnerability in the face of the Earth's immense power and the relentless march of time. But this story is not one of despair. It is also one of incredible hope. For every story of fragility, there is a testament to resilience, the enduring stones of Baalbek's trilithon, standing firm through millennia of wars and tremors, are a silent promise that what we build with purpose can endure. The earthquake-resistant walls of Sacsayhuaman are a masterclass in ingenuity, a lesson from our ancestors on how to live in harmony with a powerful and unpredictable world. They remind us that while civilizations may fall, the human spirit, our relentless drive to create, to solve, to overcome, persists. These discoveries demand that we shed our modern arrogance and see our ancestors for who they truly were, minds as sharp, as creative, and as complex as our own. The stargazers of Göbekli Tepe were scientists. The engineers of Pumapunku were artists of precision. The navigators who sailed the ancient coasts were masters of their environment. Their achievements are not just relics to be studied, they are inspirations, urging us to recognize the boundless capacity that lies within ourselves in every era. This shared human thread connects us to them in the most intimate way. The challenges we face today, a changing climate, societal upheaval, the quest for meaning, are not new.
Our ancestors grappled with rising seas that drowned their homes and shifting climates that reshaped their world. They responded not with surrender, but with incredible ingenuity, building monuments that stood firm and telling stories that endured. Their past is a living guide, its wisdom waiting to be applied to our own struggles. And so, we are called to a new openness, a willingness to question what we think we know. History is not a closed book of facts to be memorized. It is a living investigation, an ongoing conversation between the present and the must. Each new find, each submerged village, each buried chamber challenges our timeline and pushes back the dawn of human achievement. This curiosity is what connects us to the builders of those great monuments. They looked at the world and asked, "What if?" And so must we. As we sit here, the night air cool against our skin, we feel that profound connection. The past is not a distant, separate world.
It is a part of us. Its lessons woven into the fabric of our present, its mysteries an invitation to keep exploring. As we drift towards sleep, let this truth be a lullaby, soothing us with the knowledge that we are not alone in our struggles, that we are part of an unbroken chain of human experience, a story of dreaming, creating, and enduring. We stand at the threshold of the future, a new golden age of discovery, where the tools of our own time promise to unveil the deepest secrets of the ancient past. The journey we have taken tonight is not over. In fact, it is just beginning. The technologies that have already revealed so much are becoming more powerful, more precise, and more accessible every day. LiDAR, with its laser pulses piercing through jungles, has already reshaped our maps of the ancient world. But imagine, in the coming years, swarms of small, intelligent drones hovering over the uncharted regions of the Amazon or the Sahara, mapping buried temples and forgotten roads with a clarity we can barely conceive of. These tools are democratizing discovery, empowering local communities and passionate researchers to uncover the heritage hidden in their own backyards. Satellites equipped with advanced radar will continue to scan entire continents from orbit, perhaps one day confirming the whispers of lost ruins beneath the frozen ice of Antarctica, a place where some speculate an ancient civilization might lie in perfect preservation. Ground penetrating radar will probe deeper into the Earth, mapping not just single chambers, but entire underground complexes, tombs, or ritual spaces that have been sealed for millennia. And environmental DNA will continue to open doors to a past we thought was lost forever. Future advances could allow us to reconstruct entire ecosystems around lost cities, or to trace the footsteps of ancient mariners by analyzing sediment from the ocean floor. These discoveries might finally provide a concrete link between the submerged ruins we see and the legends of lands like Atlantis or Mu. Perhaps the most exciting frontier is the collaboration between this new technology and ancient knowledge. The future of archaeology is one where indigenous groups, with their deep oral traditions, guide scientists to sites long overlooked, their ancestral stories aligning perfectly with the new data streaming from our machines. Picture a village elder in Polynesia sharing a sacred tale of a sunken island. As a drone confirms its existence beneath the waves, a bridge between the oldest and newest ways of knowing, built in a single photo breathtaking moment. Of course, this future is not without its challenges. Our own changing climate now threatens to destroy the very sites that can teach us about resilience. Rising sea levels and coastal erosion threaten ruins from Pavlopetri to the shores of every continent. But here too, technology offers a lifeline.
Digital preservation through 3D scanning and virtual reality allows us to create perfect, detailed models of these precious sites, building a global library of human heritage that can endure even if the physical remains are lost. As we stand on this precipice of discovery, we feel the pulse of this unfinished journey. The future of archaeology is not just about finding things, it is about connecting us to our roots, to the dreams and struggles of those who came before. It reminds us that human history is a living story, one that we are still writing with every scan, every sample, and every question we dare to ask. And so, as we drift towards sleep, let this final thought cradle you. The past is not lost, but waiting. Its secrets are ready to be uncovered by those bold enough to seek them. The wonders we have explored tonight are not just relics of a distant past, they are threads that connect us, all of us, to a shared human story of resilience and ambition. Close your eyes and dream of their cities, their temples, their lives. Know that you carry their spirit, their creativity, their courage, and their endless quest for meaning. The past is a companion, its mysteries a gift, inviting you to rest in the knowledge that humanity's story is still unfolding. Thank you for joining me on this journey through Mystery History for Sleep. If these stories have stirred something in you, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments below. For the greatest discoveries are often found not in the earth, but in the conversations we share. Until next time, sleep well.